One of the most recurring topics that I talk about with men who are on the grind, chasing goals, pursuing personal excellence is this general idea of how do you create big breakthroughs quickly, right? Everybody's desire, big, massive breakthroughs in as little time as possible, and ideally in as little effort as possible. One of the biggest breakthroughs that I've ever had in my life that directly correlated to and was the direct causality of big success very quickly from that point forward and ongoing in my life was understanding the 80-20 principle. You've probably heard of this, right? Pareto's principle, 80-20. And the basic way of saying it is that 20% of your efforts get you 80% of your results. That's the summary. Now, for many years, I had heard this concept, and intellectually it sounds cool. But how do you actually begin to implement it, and implement it in a way that it actually makes a real difference in your own life, right? Because just head knowledge without implementation isn't going to get you results. As I like to always say, we nowadays do not have an education or an information problem. We have an application problem. There's more information and education coming out of our ears than there is corn in Nebraska. The internet is giving everybody access to unparalleled amounts of information readily and easily available at our fingertips. The first time that I started understanding how to implement the 80-20 principle was within the field and context of marketing. At that time, I had a mentor and marketing coach by the name of Perry Marshall. And Perry Marshall started talking about and teaching the 80-20 principle constantly, specifically applied to buying paid traffic on the internet. So running ads on Google, on Facebook, on any platform where you can buy traffic, and then how to be able to optimize for the most profitable traffic and for the most profitable 20% of your efforts so that you can eliminate the 80% that's underperforming and continuously be getting more traffic for less cost, more leads for less cost, more sales for less cost, right? Driving results and profitability. And one person that Perry Marshall really brought to front and center for all of us that were going through his programs is a gentleman by the name of Richard Koch. And Richard Koch is, I guess you could say, sort of like the modern godfather of the 80-20 principle. He's written multiple books specifically on the 80-20 principle from a business perspective, from a life perspective, from time management perspective. He's written other really powerful books like Super Connector, The Star Principle, Simplify. All of these books, and he's written books on non-80-20 topics, but all the books that he's written in regards to the 80-20 topics are about how to take this concept and apply it. Now, when I started applying it at that time, I was doing Google AdWords management and Facebook paid traffic management as a consultant for clients. When I started applying 80-20 concepts and principles to my clients' ads accounts, I started creating extraordinary results. When I started applying the 80-20 principle to consultations and sales efforts with prospective new clients, I was able to blow my competition out of the water. It was almost like being able to walk into a situation that metaphorically, or as an analogy, is a building, and we're wondering what all is in the entire building, and most people had to walk through the building to map it out. And it's like I had a pair of X-ray glasses that could see through everything, and I could just tell you where everything was at, how it was going to happen, and what needed to happen without having to put in the time as a metaphor, as a parallel of putting in the time of trial and error to figure it all out. That's how good I started becoming once I understood the 80-20 principle and understood how to apply it. Okay? The 80-20 principle doesn't stop at just 80-20. Okay? Because when you look at it as a baseline, the top 20% of things get you 80% of your results, but then the top 20% of the top 20% gets you about what, 50 to 60% of your results. And then there's the top 20% of the top 20% of the top 20% that actually might be getting you 50 to 40% of your results. So the more you can optimize your time, your effort, your resources, your faculties to figuring out the top 20% of the top 20% of the top 20% of how you're spending and investing your time, your money, your energy, your creativity, your faculties, just all your collective resources. The more that you can figure those out and then optimize towards them, by default, universal laws, nature's laws, you will accelerate and amplify your results. You will accelerate how fast you get to the result, and you will amplify how large the result is. Now, I would highly encourage you to go read every book you can get your hands on by Richard Koch. And there's been other books written about it that are related to the topic. I believe there's one book called The Power of the One Thing, or something like that. I've reread it twice many years ago. Don't see it on the shelf here now. I've got books all over this house. Anyway, I might do a video in the future that's just basically, I'll do a video about required reading for understanding the 80-20 principle. But if you were to read just one book as a starter point, I would actually read a more recent book called 10x is Easier Than 2x. And 10x is Easier Than 2x is a book co-authored by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan is the founder of Strategic Coach, which is one of the probably if not then one of the entrepreneurial coaching organizations in existence today that's had the most impact on the most amount of entrepreneurs. Dan Sullivan has spent a lifetime doing this, helping high-performance entrepreneurs perform even higher. And Dr. Benjamin Hardy his field of work is in transformational psychology, organizational psychology, personal identity, and just creating the life that you want, in my summary, my words. But there's one part of the book, 10x is Easier Than 2x, that I'm going to highlight in this video and talk about it to wrap up the video. And this part of the book talks, from my perspective, gives any of us a really simple, easy to follow blueprint on how to implement the 80-20 principle. All right? Because again, like I said at the beginning of this video, information without application is useless. It's just mental obesity, right? You're just increasing how thick your brain is with information, but you're getting no bigger results with it. So that usually leads to frustration, anxiety, moodiness, anger, self-loathing, and depression, a whole bunch of other things. Because you know all this smart stuff, but you got no results to show for it. That's an application issue, my friend, not an information issue. So here's something that the book talks about that is just absolutely brilliant. And it's so awesome and brilliant. I'm upset that I wasn't able to figure this out and communicate this on my own, having studied 80-20 principle for so long and having implemented it for so long myself. But what they talk about in the book is this. If you want to know what your 80-20 is, here's what you do. 10x your goal. So let's say you have a business goal, okay? Let's say you have a business goal of random, just an easy number. Let's say that you have a goal of making $100,000 in this coming year. At the time of this video, it's almost at the end of 2024. Thanksgiving is next week. So 2025 is right around the corner. So let's just say, you can make these numbers bigger, smaller, because it's framework, it's fractal. But let's say that somebody has a goal of making $100,000 in their business in 2025. So the way you would implement and begin to apply the principle is to make the goal 10 times bigger. So $100,000 multiplied by 10 is $1 million. Now here's why you do this. Because if you make the goal 10 times bigger than how you have it set now, a few things happen. One is that it probably becomes unbelievable, right? Like if I ask most people, what's your goal for this coming year? Most people by and large are going to tell me a goal that they believe that they could hit with the right amount of consistency, diligence, discipline, work, effort, and so forth, right? This is believable, you could hit it. But if I then ask the same person to 10x that goal, qualitatively and quantitatively, what'll happen is then I ask, do you believe you could hit it now? And most people will probably say no. Good, that's where we want you. Here's why, which leads to point. The second thing that'll happen when you 10x your goals. You will then look at all the current activities or plans or the things that you were planning to do to hit your original $100,000 goal. And it will become, I think as the book says, it will become laughably obvious to you what activities you had planned wouldn't ever get you to $1 million. Because they would have been effective enough to get you to 100,000, right? Because let's say you were making 70 grand this year. So now adding 30 grand is kind of your growth goal, right? So if you just did a little bit more of what you were already doing and you did a little bit harder and did it a little bit longer and did a little bit more disciplined, we can see how through linear manual effort, you could add $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, right? But to go 10x, big quantum leap jump, not going to happen. Won't work. And what's so cool is that you can literally start no matter what your IQ level is, EQ level is, experience level is, on some level, you're going to be able to start to easily self-coach by looking at the things you had planned. So let's say that you had 10 things planned that you were going to do as regular daily, weekly, and monthly actions and activities, right? Some of them might be daily activities, some of them might have been weekly activities, some of them might have been monthly or quarterly activities. And that was your smart plan to get to $100,000 per year. You with me? Well, now if you say, okay, 10x, I'm going to go to $1 million. And then you look at those same 10 planned activities or efforts, you'll most likely be able to very easily see the 6, 7, or 8 things that, hey, no matter how hard, long, and good I do these things, there's just no way they're going to get me to $1 million. But these 2 to 3 things, they might. So then what happens is if you're actually going to implement and apply the 80-20 principle, is you then by default, then based upon your own self-coaching feedback loop, have to eliminate the 5, 6, 7 things that you already can tell won't get you to $1 million, to the 10x goal. You have to eliminate them automatically. Like they have to go. And then you have to focus all your time, energy, faculties, creativity, your collective resources on the 1, 2, or 3 things that you believe could get you to the 10x goal. Because as the adage goes, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you land amongst the stars. This application process is how you actually effect that cliche quote, right? Because think about this. If you suddenly take 10 things you were planning to do and then narrow it down to only 3 things that you believe could get you to the 10x version of your current goal, and now you spend all your time, money, effort, energy, creativity implementing only those 1, 2, 3 things, you're going to get a bigger result than at least 100,000 or whatever your original goal is, right? So I've done this in multiple areas of my life. I ask myself, not how do I make a little bit more money, right? I've asked myself questions like, how do I go from being at 500,000 per year at the time to getting to 5 million per year? I've asked myself, how do I go from having to work 7 days a week to only working 3 days a week and still hitting that big goal, right? See, creating all these constraints. I've yo-yoed my body weight and physique multiple times. And one day I asked myself, instead of just trying to lose body fat and have a decent physique, how do I develop and maintain a top 5% physique for my decade age bracket? I'm in my 30s. So how do I develop and maintain a physique and a level of health that puts me in the top 5%, easily the top 5% of all men walking the earth in their 30s, natty, without taking steroids? Right? I ask myself, how do I create a platform, a community, and put out a message of personal development, personal excellence, and show men and entrepreneurs how to build a powerful self-identity that reaches millions and millions of men and people around the world, instead of just reaching the 30 to 40 guys that I have friendships with or walk life with in my personal life, right? I've asked myself, where instead of how do I get date, like a lot of guys, how do I get a date with a hot girl? I flipped around and asked myself, what do I need to do and how do I need to show up that I have a life filled with 10, 20, 30 hot, beautiful women at any time because of things I'm doing in life, projects I'm a part of, brands that I'm building. And through that, I always have my pick and choice of gorgeous women, fun women, and they bring more women around me in my life. So instead of always trying to get just a little bit more or eke out the bare minimum, the bottom of what you would want. So let's say that what you want, let's say the bottom, let's say that your goal is right here, and this is the bottom of you at least tapping to the minimum version of your goal, and let's say you're down here. It seems to me that so many men try to figure out just how to get to the bottom of the beginning of what your good goal and outcome result could taste like. And what we're doing here is we're saying, we're taking this and we're making it disappear, and we're setting our sights up here. And we're dialing in, what is it gonna take to get here? Because even if you don't get here, but you get here, this is still well above what your previous goal was, which you pushed all the way down now because you've gone 10x. Again, the cliche, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll still land amongst the stars. As corny and as cliche as that is, there's truth to it. That's why cliche and corny things are cliche and corny, because they stick around. So, if you want a big, bold breakthrough in your life, in my personal experience, nothing delivered that faster for me and for many others around me in my life than understanding the 80-20 principle, learning and understanding how to actually implement it, not just know it as an intellectual little nice thought, and then following through on actually implementing it. And this is the last thing I'll say, wrapping up here, and this is about specifically following through. Albert Einstein, I believe it was said, the level of thinking that got you here is not going to be the level of thinking that'll get you there. Okay? It seems, while there's a lot of positive psychology and positive content and decent content about going after our goals, transforming our lives, getting to the next level, one thing that seems to be woefully lacking across the board with a lot of teachers, guides, gurus, whatever, that talk about transformation and leveling up your life, what a lot of them seem to not address or leave out is the amount of internal mental and emotional chaos and disturbance you're going to have to go through in order to get to the next level in your life. Here's why. In tandem with the quote that I just said from Albert Einstein, the level of thinking that got you here is not the level of thinking that will get you there. In tandem with that, here's another principle. A new level in life is going to require a new version of you. Every next level in your life is going to, by default, require a different version of you. Because if the version of you that you are today was capable of getting the outcome that you want, you would by default already have the outcome, because outcomes and results are a default byproduct of who we are. Okay? So to become a different version of you, or the next version of you that has the outcomes and results you say you want, you're going to have to what? Let go of big chunks of, or maybe even yourself entirely, of who you are today. When I went from applying the 80-20 principle to just marketing and sales to many years later applying it to my life, wholesale in every area, I had to go on a personal transformation journey, a self-identity journey. And let me tell you something, I evolved and shed more metaphorical skins, right? And hides like a snake does, right? When it grows and it sheds its old skin because it's a new version of itself, it's a bigger version of itself. I shed old identities more times in a 3-year period than I think I had in the previous 15 years. Because I was so locked in on 10x, 10x, 10x in every area of my life. Money, health and fitness, friends, relationships, women, business, right? Knowledge, insight, just quality of life, hobbies, everything. And so remember that when it comes to implementing, we always like to talk about, dream about, vision, fantasize, right? About big, bold breakthroughs, hitting the creme de la creme of whatever our life goals might be. But remember, to get there, you're going to have to shed probably the entire version of who you are now. This version of you has to die. Do you understand how painful that's going to be? No, you do not until you do it. But be prepared for that and understand that's part of the price you pay to elevate. Okay? So understand that you have to understand the 80-20 principle. You have to learn to understand how to implement it and apply it. Read 10x is easier than 2x as a starting point, and then go read everything by Richard Koch. And then 3, be prepared. And then 3, be prepared for the amount of emotional and mental cognitive dissonance and chaos you'll have to go through temporarily as you let go of who you are today in order to become the next higher version of you. Because again, the level of thinking that got you here won't get you there. So to get to the next level in your life is going to require a different next level version of you. You're going to have to let go of the current version of you. If you are not prepared to pay that price, stop dreaming, stop having big goals, enjoy the life you have now. That's because that is the price of admission. That is how you pay to play at the bigger level.